I would like to formally announce my retirement. I've been holding on to this for years, and it's finally paying off. And I'm gonna build a yacht that challenges Gaben's yacht. Did you also know Gaben's yacht has a yacht inside the yacht? And it has a sub-basement garage for his submarine? True story. For those looking for a high-end custom gaming experience, look no further than Falcon Northwest. Falcon Northwest has been building PCs made for gamers for over 30 years with a focus on a true high-end gaming experience. Custom cases available only through Falcon Northwest feature state-of-the-art testing and design to ensure that every component is performing at their best through thermal imaging and rigorous lab testing designed and overseen by the Falcon Northwest founder himself. With a complete lineup of systems ranging from small to large, every Falcon Northwest system includes a 3-year warranty policy and a year of 2-way overnight shipping coverage, providing the ultimate peace of mind. To see all that Falcon Northwest has to offer, follow the sponsored link in the description below. I know this really seems like a hard flex, but honestly, it's what we've collected over the years, and we've sold quite a bit of it. But anyway, moving on. Today, we know how terrible the landscape is and the future outlook is regarding RAM and pricing. We've seen what the last 3 months has done in terms of price increase. But here's the thing. RAM has been cheap for a long time. And because of how cheap RAM has been, it has twisted our mindset of what we think we need when it comes to RAM. Because 64 gigs was so cheap for DDR5 for so long that people have just become accustomed to saying 64 gigs or bust, right? There's so many conversations that have taken place over the last couple of years even, as DDR5 has become was less expensive. That's the thing, when it's new, it's expensive, and then it matures, and then speeds go up, and then quantity goes up, and then price goes down. But for the longest time, because DDR5 was actually fairly cheap given its size and capacity and speeds, that anyone that would build a system, especially if they had anything like a 5090 or a 4090 or anything there where people are spending good amounts of money on a single component, are going, why don't you have 64 gigs? You need 64 gigs to play games and to have a full-fledged system these days. 32 gigs is not enough, right? So that mentality has just completely jaded the reality of what you really need when it comes to your PC. So I recently did a video where I talked about building a DDR4 rig right now would be the best and most cost-effective way to enter the PC space currently. But obviously DDR4 capacities were on average half of that of DDR5. So for instance, DDR4, when it first launched, you could get 4 gig sticks, which were kind of rarish, but 8 gig sticks were like the norm. And most people would outfit, 16 gigabytes of RAM in their gaming system. But remember, we're going back to like 2013, 2014 for that, right? We are 12 years beyond that now. So the games have it kind of increased on what some of their demands and such are. And when DDR5 launched and it was like 16 gigabyte modules were the norm, that's where people kind of got this mindset of, well, 32 gigs is the min because you're gonna run 2 sticks. Even though DDR5, a single stick, is technically dual channel, the standard is you buy a kit which usually comes with 2 sticks in it, and 16 gigs being the minimum per stick, 32 gigs became the new minimum flare, if you will, for your system. Well, and then hardcore builders or diehard enthusiasts were like, no, I need 64 gigs, or maybe sometimes even running like 128 gigs by putting 4 sticks of 32 gigs in their system, right? But then we led into obviously memory controller instabilities and stuff where you start to realize like, well, I've got huge capacity, but I can't even, it has to run at JEDEC standards because the system and the CPU IMC is just incapable of running that amount of RAM. Things have gotten better though. It's a lot easier to run that today, but if you had 128 gigs of RAM in your system, it is a complete waste of money. I believe even today running 64 gigabytes is complete overkill. In fact, I might recommend if you're running 4 sticks of anything right now, you might want to sell 2 of them because you're not going to lose anything, but you're going to gain something. And that what you're going to gain is some Benjamins. But I digress. This doesn't even include non-binary RAM. We're talking 24 gig sticks, 24 gigs leading to 48 gig kits, leading to 96 gig kits, which are completely non-standard when it comes to like the binary design of RAM. And not only that, 24 gig sticks of RAM, even before all of this craziness started, was a premium. It was twice as much money to buy 24 gig sticks of RAM than it was to buy 16. but you weren't getting twice the capacity. But what you were doing though, believe it or not, and I wanted to do a video about this a long time ago. I didn't think it was all that relevant, but I guess it's kind of relevant today. You are putting actually more stress on your IMC by running non-binary RAM than you are running RAM that is binary with 8 gigs, 16 gig, 32 gigs sticks in capacity. So you would actually have more often than not, although it's matured, not be able to run some of the XMP profiles or the Expo profiles because of the amount of stress it would actually put on the IMC. And there was actually a measurable heat increase too on that part of the IO die for AMD and on Intel's IMC to be able to run that RAM. So I never did that deep dive video because that was when obviously 50 series launched and then trying to revamp so many SOPs around here. It's not one I got to, but it's one I want to get to because it's still going to be relevant. In fact, even if you shop for RAM today, you'll notice like a major price difference between like the same brand and the same like product. For instance, like this is the Trident. Oh gosh, we're going to have House of Cards falling down right here. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter if it's a Trident Z Neo, right? If you're having 32 gig kit versus a 48 gig kit, even if like the mega transfers and the timings are the same, you would notice a major price difference between the two. And that's because the manufacturing of non-binary RAM is also more expensive. So right off the bat, just ignore non-binary RAM. Like 24 gigs sticks, don't even consider it, especially today, because there was already a price premium and it's even more premium moving forward. 32 gigs is all you need. And let's be honest, you don't even need 6,000 megatransfers RAM. It's a nice to have if you're running a full like high-end custom gaming rig, you're running 80 series, 90 tier, 80 tier GPUs, or I would say 9070 XTs, but they're not as obviously as demanding on the CPU in terms of frame rate as like an 80 or 90 tier card would be from NVIDIA currently. You would be very hard pressed to notice a difference between 6,000 and even like 5,600 or even 5,200, depending on the title. Some titles do like more mega transfers, but that's usually because you're running high frame rates. I bring this up because I recently saw a post, and these are posts that just make me shake my head because it means I hate the term influencer, but as influencer, I'm not trying to influence you to buy stuff. I'm trying to influence your knowledge, if you will, on stuff. And I saw someone post a system like, hey, is this a good system for sale? It was like a pre-built, but it was running like 5,600 megatransfers RAM at like, I want to say it was like CL36 maybe, which obviously is not the fastest, but if you use the RAM calculator, you'll see that the difference in time in nanoseconds is not like super far apart from say 6,000 CL38, which is pretty common, 36 obviously, and then 32 and 28, which are ridiculously expensive these days. The comments, oh, I wouldn't even consider buying a system with RAM that slow. It's like the level of just arrogance and the level of misinformation being thrown out at that concept of, well, 5,200 megatransfers RAM is so slow, I would never even consider it. We've tested extensively megatransfers versus timing versus the differences on like something like even a 5090 were in the like max 2% difference. Guess what that difference would be on a standard graphics card? Probably zero, to be honest. But it's because RAM has been so cheap for so long, and we've kind of gotten spoiled by that. Let me redact that a little bit. We're not spoiled by it, meaning you should be grateful that was ever the case, because this is what they cost now. It is overpriced today. We know it's overpriced today. It's just supply and demand, and it's more reasons for us to all hate AI. But we were spoiled by an industry that is now propping up an entire other industry, so it makes the value of these go up. It's artificial in more ways than one, obviously, but the value of what the RAM is today is just the price to value is completely skewed. It's not correct. But because of that, and because you could get 6,000 megatransfers RAM, 6,400 megatransfers RAM, and then like the crazy part is 7,000s and above, like into the 8,000s, it was extremely expensive when it first came out, and even the price on that tanked for a long time. Let me give you an idea of like how crazy pricing has gotten right now. an SI we were talking with recently, and I won't name them, but I've been talking to a lot of the SIs to try and get some ideas of what is it like for them trying to buy in volume. I guess for a while there, DDR5, like a 6000 CL32 16 gig stick of RAM was costing $10 wholesale. Today it's costing $180 wholesale. What is that, a 1,800% increase or something like that? If my math isn't stupid. That just goes to show how inexpensive it was to manufacture and what the markups really were like. So you can only imagine how much money they're making today at those current prices, because guess what? The cost to manufacture it hasn't changed. It's the same cost it always was, and if distributors could sell it at $10 a stick and make money, they're making a lot of money. Okay, it finally crashed. They're making a lot of money today. Oh. This is DDR5 overclocking memory, and this is not overclocking memory. No, the non-overclocking is 5600.
Oh, I would never consider that sticky RAM.
You're so stupid. What kind of stupid buyer are you, Phil? You're so stupid. But when it comes about things to consider, I know Hardware Unboxed did an excellent video comparing a single stick versus dual stick versus capacities, and the same effort I'm making today to get you to understand that if you are in the market and you do have pockets to afford right now the crazy costs, don't overspend by going with like 64 gig sticks. These are all 32, right? 32, 32. Holy shit.
What?
I didn't realize what that was. Zoom in on that. I didn't know we had this. I'm
Hold on.
definitely fucking retiring now. Anyway, we're on a tangent now. I mean, now people are gonna hate us even more. But yeah, so it's just because RAM was so cheap, you could buy a 64 gig set of RAM. And the thing was back then, and I say back then, as in like 3 months ago, 4 months ago, you could buy 64 gigs of like 6000 dual stick, right? So two 32 gig sticks, and it would have cost you maybe 200 bucks, maybe, for the good stuff. Now you're paying that for DDR4. But anyway, also one other thing to consider. I have seen discussions of people saying, well, then just buy a single stick and then add more later. Here's the problem. It is very difficult to find single sticks of RAM. The reason for that is for them to run at their advertised speeds, there is like an ASIC matching that happens here. There is a pairing. So even though these are both right here, 5600, still again. So even though both these sets right here are 5600 megatransfers, CL, what is the CL on this? It's probably not gonna be that impressive. Whatever, let's just say it's CL38, okay? Even though they're the exact same SKU number, if you bought them independently, let's pretend these are one stick kits, which is not a kit anymore at that point, but let's just say it's one stick each, there's no guarantees they'll run together in the same system at those advertised speeds. The only partial guarantee that you get, because none of the speeds that are written on the box are ever guaranteed. There's too many other factors at play, specifically with the IMC and the quality of your CPU and the lottery there. They're only guaranteed with their matched set. So same thing if you took two sticks here and then two sticks here and put them together and tried to, double your capacity, you more than likely may not be able to run them at their advertised speed. Now things have gotten better as BIOSes have updated and the QVL lists have improved and the validation taking place between the motherboard manufacturers, the CPU manufacturers, and the RAM manufacturers, all kind of coordinating their efforts to, come up with these IMC firmwares or whatever you want to call them to make the kits run have improved. There's no guarantees. So I would just be mindful of that if you are going to be running a single stick, that you can add another stick of it later, but there's no guarantees you'll get the advertised speed. But I would still rather have a system that's running JEDEC standard at 5200, technically it's 4800 megatransfers, but most of them run 52 out of the box on the motherboards these days. I would still rather have that than nothing, right? Or that and have twice the capacity and twice the amount of bandwidth for the CPU and the system to have to the RAM than to not have two sticks of RAM. I'd rather go through that. Or if things finally normalize and things come back down to reality someday, then you go out and buy a kit of matched RAM and then you sell the single stick or hang on to it as a spare troubleshooting RAM, something like that. But I just wanted to bring this back to reality, that anyone out there today that is saying you need more than 32 gigabytes of system RAM for a gaming machine, doesn't matter if it's DDR4 or DDR5, to be honest. If you could easily get 16 gigabyte set of DDR5, which is actually kind of rare because like I said, 16 gigs per stick is kind of like the standard for DDR5. I do have 8 gigabyte sticks. I think they're right here actually. So I got 3 kits of 16 gigabytes of DDR5. Now there's no heat sinks or anything on these. This is when DDR5 first came out and Crucial was sending these out. In fact, I think these are JEDEC. Yeah, they're 4800 megahertz. But you know what? Do you know how many people right now are like, can I please buy this from you? Please, right? Because they understand that something is better than nothing. But no, ignore and write anyone off that would say 64 gigs is needed as just completely ignorant. They're just wrong. That's it. There's not even a discussion there. You are wrong. So please, for the love of God, if you come across anyone that's trying to convince you and you're a new, because there are a lot of people trying to build a system for the first time today. If you come across someone telling you you need more than 32 gigs or your system is slow or it's terrible or it's dumb or whatever, just ignore those people. They're ignorant. And to be honest, they're stupid. And if you're watching this video right now and you're one of those people that's ever said that,